Okay, John, so let's talk about the sum and the difference of angles. So here's the deal. We would think, or come on, why are you not working? Thank you. Okay, when we're talking about what's sine of A plus sine of B. So let's just say, like, what's the sine of 30 degrees plus 60 degrees? It kind of makes sense, or this is kind of like what our mind goes automatically to. We kind of think that, oh, sine of A plus B is equal to the sine of A, so sine of 30, plus the sine of 60. That's what we think. That would kind of make our lives really easy, and that's what we would really like it to be equal to. But unfortunately, that's not true. It's not how it works. They are actually not equal. Let me show you what I mean. Let me show you a quick example. Oh, look at that. I didn't even know that was there. Okay. Sine of 30 degrees plus the sine of 60 degrees. Now, we can get these values out of our magic table really, really quickly. So I'm just going to do the sine and the cosine of... Actually, it's easier if I just use lines so that I don't have to draw straight lines, because apparently I can't handle that. Okay. Sine and cosine. I'm just going to make like a modified magic table really, really quick. So 30, 45, and 60. And hopefully you remember still how to make the magic table, okay? I'm going to go through it with you really quick. This is something that you need to know for the Regents exam, because nobody's going to give you this table, give you this chart, but you're going to need to know these values. So you do 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Everything is divided by 2. And then you put a radical symbol over the 2's and the 3's. Okay, so what is the sine of 30 degrees? Sine of 30 degrees is just 1/2. Oops. Sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. I'm losing my mind. And sine of 60 degrees is radical 3 over 2. Okay, so sine of 30 plus sine of 60 is really like 1 plus radical 3 over 2, which that is equal to about, let's see, 1 plus radical 3 enter, divide by 2, that whole thing is equal to 1.36 something. Okay, over here on the left hand side though, sine of 30 plus 60, so the sine of 90 degrees. Well, what's the sine of 90 degrees? We figured out that by taking a look at our unit circle, and 90 degrees is up here. Sine is the y value, so what's the y value right here at 90 degrees? That point is 0, 1, so sine of 90 degrees is just 1. Well, is 1 equal to 1.36? No. So that's kind of just an example quickly to show you how sine of A plus B is not equal to the sine of A plus the sine of B, like we would like it to be. It would be really easy if that were the case. Okay. Instead, we have different equations to figure out how to find, the sine of A plus B, the sine or the cosine of A plus B, the tangent of A plus B. So these equations look kind of long, annoying, but number one, you don't have to memorize them. Okay, they're given to you on the Regents exam. Number two, all you're going to do is like plug in values into this equation, so it's not going to be that bad at all. So on your reference sheet, right up here in the top left-hand corner is where you can find the equations for the sum of two angles, sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay? Let's see if Miss Tompkins has any examples for us. Oh, no, okay, we're moving right on to the difference of two angles. So the same thing is true for subtracting two angles. We kind of would like to think that the sine of A minus B is equal to the sine of A minus the sine of B. That would just make our lives really easy. But that's not the case. So instead, we have these equations that are given to us below to figure out what the difference of two angles is actually equal to. So the sine of some angle A minus some angle B is equal to the sine of A times the cosine of B minus the cosine of A times the sine of B. The hardest part about these kind of questions is we're dealing with two different angles. Yes, we're doing with two different angles. We have A and we have B. So sometimes figuring out what the sine of A is and the cosine of A and the sine of B and the cosine of B, some kids were kind of getting them backwards or confused. Just make your work nice and neat and organized and it'll be fine. So cosine of A minus B is cosine of A times cosine of B plus sine of A plus sine of B. All of these equations are right below the sum one, and they're right here with all the difference of two angles. If you take a look at the equations of the sum of two angles and the difference of two angles right next to each other, you can see that these equations are almost identical to each other. If you look at the sine of A plus B and the sine of A minus B, it's the same pattern of an equation. It's just that one tiny little sign is different. Let me zoom this in so you can see. One little, that's not very focused at all, is it? One little sign is different. So you just have to be really careful about that. You have to make sure that you're not making a mistake. Okay. Make sure that you just follow the reference sheet perfectly. Let's see what's on the next question. Okay. For the most part, for these kind of questions on the test, what you're going to do is play the matching game, okay? So you're going to use your reference sheet and match up those equations. Hopefully you have your reference sheet out in front of you right now. Yep, you need your reference sheet out in front of you so that you can be searching for these things. So cosine of 120 times the sine of cosine of 30 plus the sine of 120 times the sine of 30 is equivalent to which of the following? Whenever you see that pattern, cosine times cosine plus sine times sine, you're going to be going right to your reference sheet right away, and you're going to look to see which equation matches that pattern. If you look at the cosine of A plus B and the cosine of A minus B, they both go cosine times cosine plus or minus sine times sine. So all you have to do is pick the one that has the addition sign in between. So cosine of A times cosine of B plus sine of A times sine of B is the equation for the cosine of A minus cosine of B. Cosine of A minus B. Okay, so that's the equation that I matched up on my reference sheet. That kind of goes in this pattern. Cosine, cosine, plus sine, sine. Then all you're going to do is fill in the missing parts. Okay, so my A is whichever angle came first in this pattern. So my A is 120 degrees. My B is 30. So this is really cosine of 120 minus 30, which is 90 degrees. So go right back to your unit circle. 90 is right up here. Wow, that's really bad. 90 is right up here. This point is 0, 1, and cosine is my x value right there. So the cosine of 90 degrees is equal to 0, and that is option 3. Okay? That's not too hard at all. Okay, let's do another one. Alright, let's see. We have this pattern. Whenever you see this pattern, you're going to go right to your reference sheet. So you have cosine times cosine plus sine times sine. That's actually the exact same one that we just looked at. So take a look at your reference sheet. Be looking in those two sections, the sum of and difference of two angles. You're looking for cosine times cosine plus sine times sine. And I look and I can see that that is equal to the equation for cosine of a minus b. Same exact thing on the other question. I don't know why Miss Tompkins put these right next to each other. But our a in this case was the first angle that was mentioned, which is 40. So 40, and our b is 10, so 40 minus 10. So this is equal to the cosine of 30 degrees. Next. Oh my gosh, that's the exact same thing. It's cosine of a minus b. I don't know why. There's 3 questions right in a row of the exact same thing. So this is cosine of 70 minus 10, which is cosine of 60. Sometimes your answers are going to be in terms of sine, cosine, or tangent. Other times they're going to be looking for the exact value, like the very first one that we did, where they wanted us to figure out that cosine of 90 degrees is 0. So there's 2 different types of questions that they might ask you. Okay. Finally, there's a different kind of question. Fantastic. This time we're looking for the pattern that goes sine, cosine, plus cosine, sine. So take a look at your reference sheet. Sine, cosine, plus cosine, sine, and I found the one that matches with that. And that equation is sine of a plus b. So what's my a in this case? My a is 50. My b is 30. So this is the sine of 80 degrees. Really, really easy stuff. Another one. This time our pattern goes sine, cosine, minus cosine, sine. So sine, cosine, minus cosine, sine is sine of a minus b. My a is 80 and my b is 10. So this is sine of 70 degrees. Now this question doesn't give us multiple choice. It doesn't tell us what to, leave it in terms of sine or leave it, write it as an exact value. But that's how you would see it on the test. On the test it would say write it in terms of sine, and you would leave it like this. Or if it said put it as an exact value, you'd use your calculator and do sine of 70. Make sure you're in degrees, which I'm not. Is equal to, and it'll give you the decimal. So you might have questions that ask you both of those. For the most part, if you're going to have to figure out what the value of something is, it's going to be an exact value, and that's going to be one of the things in the magic table. So before you take this test, make sure that you remember how to do the full magic table, the sine, the cosine, and the tangent parts of it. Okay? All right.